I'm tired, so don't talk to me, Mike said flatly, avoiding eye contact as he pushed past me and headed toward the bathroom. I wanted to call out for him to stop, but my voice betrayed me and remained trapped in my throat. As Mike's indifferent back disappeared around the corner, my vision blurred. I collapsed to my knees, my face betraying nothing. I had often wondered if my patience was to blame, convincing myself that perhaps Mike was simply overwhelmed with work. I believed that if I could just change enough, Mike would revert to the man he used to be. I did everything I could think of, but Mike didn't change. It was then that I made the hardest decision of all. I told him as if for the final time, "Let's get a divorce." At that very moment, a new message popped up on Mike's smartphone, which lay casually on the table. I glanced at it and was taken aback. Realizing the gravity of the situation, I steeled myself. I resolved to make him feel the pain I had endured. I am Jane, 26 years old. I had recently married Mike, my boyfriend of 3 years, and left my family home. It feels strange to admit, but I was the youngest child in my family, cherished and adored. On the day I left, my entire family cried, urging me to be happy and asking Mike to take good care of me. Mike responded with a relaxed smile, even under my father's stern gaze. My father had two major concerns about Mike. First, Mike had been divorced from his previous wife, and that marriage had ended within just 6 months due to what was described as a personality clash. The briefness of that marriage worried my father, even though he agreed to our union. Understanding my father's worries, Mike decided to show his commitment in his own way. He presented a pre-filled divorce form and, with a serious expression, said, "If I cannot make Jane happy, please use this divorce form." He added, "I apologize for any trouble my previous divorce may have caused Jane's family. This is a guarantee, a promise from me to make her happy. Please accept it." Despite his confusion, my father seemed to grasp Mike's sincerity and accepted the form. The second reason for my father's concern was Mike's unique personality, which was difficult to fully understand. With a complex expression, my father nodded his approval, and our married life began. It was a newlywed life I had eagerly anticipated, yet what awaited me were unexpected challenges. After our marriage, I became a full-time housewife, waking up earlier than Mike each morning, preparing everything, and sending him off with a smile. Before marriage, Mike would kiss me and say, "I'm off. I'll do my best for you, Jane," while waving goodbye. But after we were married, Mike's demeanor changed completely. He started leaving the house without a word, and when he came home, he was distant and unresponsive. "Welcome back. Would you like to have dinner or take a shower first?" I would ask, but he responded lazily, "Boff. Are you okay? Does you feel well?" Even when I asked, confused, Mike would simply glance at me coldly and say, "Nothing's wrong." In retrospect, even that minimal response was better than what followed. A week into our marriage, Mike stopped responding altogether. On good days, he might give a brief word or gesture, but on bad days, he completely ignored me. "Hey, don't ignore me. You've been like this since we got married. Did I do something wrong?" I would plead, my eyes brimming with tears. But Mike remained silent. I demanded answers, and as tears streamed down my face, Mike sighed heavily. "You think crying will solve everything? Women have it easy," he said. I wanted to argue, but my tears wouldn't stop. All I could do was look down, trying to hide my pain. The truth is, my father runs a business. In other words, I am the president's daughter. Before we married, I worked as a regular employee at my father's company where I met Mike. He was in sales, and I often handled his paperwork. As we worked together, we grew closer, and he began asking for my help more frequently. Mike was surprised to learn that I was the president's daughter, but that discovery seemed to please him. He appreciated me for who I was, not just as the president's daughter. The Mike who used to listen to me attentively and respond with a warm smile is no longer present. Sometimes I wonder if things would have been better if we hadn't married. I question whether something is wrong with him or if I did something to provoke this change, but nothing specific comes to mind. It seems that the marriage itself might be the cause. Marriage often brings about complacency or changes in a person due to familiarity, and in Mike's case, it appears to have been more than just a minor shift. If I had known this side of Mike's personality before we married, I might never have gone through with it. I pulled out the pre-filled divorce form Mike had given me from my desk drawer. I wondered if submitting this document to the city office might somehow bring back the Mike I once knew. I spent days contemplating the form, taking it out and putting it back in its place. One afternoon, after returning from shopping, I found Mike waiting for me at home with an angry expression. surprised to see him home on a weekday. I greeted him with a smile. Without warning, Mike slammed his hand on the table, startling me into sitting down. He walked over, looked down at me with a cold stare, and showed me a paper he was holding. "Do you know what this is?" he asked. I nodded, recognizing the pre-filled divorce form. It was supposed to be in the drawer, but I had forgotten to put it back before leaving. "Do you want a divorce?" he demanded. I was at a loss for words. The recent months with Mike had been mentally exhausting, and if things continued like this, a divorce might be inevitable. "You've changed since we got married. You ignored everything I say. This can't be happiness," I finally said, my voice reflecting the weariness I felt. "Is this how it's going to be?" I said, my voice trembling. Mike muttered, "So I'm the only one at fault." He stared at the divorce form with a mix of disdain and resignation. "Fine, we can divorce, but the problem is with you. You haven't supported your husband as a wife should," he said, waving the form dismissively. "But you promised my father you would make me happy," I reminded him. Mike snorted, as if a realization had struck him. "To make you happy? That's such a naive, privileged thought. You don't understand reality," he said, his tone cold. "That's cruel," I replied. "You and your family are naive. You should experience poverty." I struggled to grasp the full meaning of Mike's words, but it soon became clear. He stopped providing me with any living expenses, took away my credit card and bank book, and I was left without a source of income after resigning from my job at his request. "I want you to greet me with a smile when I come home," Mike had said, which led me to become a full-time housewife. The biggest issue was food. Our supplies were dwindling, and I had to humble myself to ask Mike for money. "Could you please give me some living expenses?" I pleaded, feeling humiliated. Mike, with a smug smile, said, "Don't worry about it. I'd eat out." Despite my repeated pleas, he ignored me, and no money was forthcoming. Mike began staying out late at night or leaving early in the morning, often not coming home at all. I managed with the dwindling food supplies and instant meals, but I was reaching my limit. On the rare occasion when Mike came home on time, I finally voiced the thoughts that had been weighing on me. "You don't give me money, we don't talk, and this is far from a happy life. It doesn't even feel like a marriage," I said. "If things don't change and you have no intention of improving, then I want a divorce." I said this, hoping it might prompt some change in Mike, desperate for a way out but bracing myself for the possibility that nothing would change. I felt I had no choice but to give up. This was my last resort. Anxiously, I waited for Mike's reaction. He looked down, scratching his head in frustration, and muttered in a low voice, "You're annoying. I'm tired of this." With that, he pushed past me without another glance and headed for the bathroom. I tried to call out, "Wait," but no words came. As Mike's indifferent back disappeared from view, I felt a wave of dizziness and collapsed. His expression had remained unchanged throughout. I had endured so much since our marriage, trying to convince myself that his change was due to work stress, believing that if I adjusted, he might return to his former self. I thought I had done everything possible, but Mike remained distant and unchanging. Realizing that my efforts were in vain, I decided to take this final step. Even after mustering the courage to suggest a divorce, Mike's reaction was unsettlingly calm. Normally, if a man still cared for his wife, he would show some sign of distress at the suggestion of divorce. But Mike's face showed nothing but annoyance, confirming that he no longer loved me. It would be better to end the marriage cleanly. Continuing this relationship promised no positive outcomes. Maybe it was time to pack my things and move on. I slowly rose and made my way to the drawer where the divorce papers were kept. As I approached, I noticed Mike's phone flickering on the table. A message had arrived, and as I glanced at the screen, I was shocked by its content. The screen was filled with numerous heart emojis. I instinctively picked up the phone to read the message. "Last night was fun. Let's spend time together again," it said. The sender's name was Ellie, someone I didn't recognize. I checked toward the bathroom but saw no sign of Mike. His phone, left carelessly unlocked, revealed more as I scrolled through it. To my dismay, the screen displayed evidence of infidelity. Not just text messages but also photos of Mike embracing Ellie intimately. The clear evidence was startling, especially given the lack of any privacy measures. Was he too careless, or did he simply not care if it was discovered? I felt a surge of humiliation and anger as the truth unfolded before me. I remained remarkably calm as I photographed the evidence on Mike's phone with my own. I documented everything meticulously, ensuring that it could serve as undeniable proof. After capturing all necessary images, I returned the phone to its original place and went about my day as if nothing had happened. When Mike emerged from the bathroom, he said nothing and offered no explanation. He simply went back to his room, leaving me to grapple with the stark reality of his affair. His cold demeanor made sense now, and I accepted the truth with a heavy heart. From the following day, I resolved to start the divorce process. There was no room for doubt or confusion, only a surging anger at the betrayal. Determined to uncover the full extent of Mike's deceit, I began by investigating who Ellie was. I decided to hire a private investigator to gather reliable information. Simultaneously, I conducted my own research, noting that Mike's recent overtime and weekend work seemed increasingly suspicious. With my father's help, I was confident that the truth would be uncovered swiftly. Despite my reluctance to worry him, I had no choice but to act decisively. My goal was clear. Mike would face visible retribution. During the preparations for the divorce, the hardest part was enduring the sight of Mike's face every day. The face I once cherished now filled me with a profound urge to lash out. Whether he noticed or not, Mike commented, "You look worse than usual. Are you sick?" His lack of empathy stung, but I simply forced a smile and replied, "I'm fine." When Mike left for his usual weekend work, I put my plan into action. After confiding in my father, he arranged for me to move to a new place. He provided me with a $2 million mansion that belonged to a relative who was considering selling it. The sale wasn't urgent, allowing me to stay there for the time being. Additionally, my father covered my living expenses, making my new life more comfortable than ever. 3 days after I left, Mike called, clearly surprised. "Where are you right now?" he asked. I answered nonchalantly, "Who knows?" His agitation was evident as he continued, "I can't find the divorce papers." I was equally surprised. The fact that Mike had noticed the absence of the divorce papers and was searching for them in a panic was unexpected. Even after leaving the house, Mike's agitation was unmistakable. I could almost picture him panicking on the other end of the line, and a small smile crept onto my face. "What's the matter?" I asked coolly. "I've officially started the divorce process." Mike's voice was filled with confusion. "Why would you do that? You said yourself that if you couldn't make Jane happy, I should submit the papers. Remember?" I could hear the desperation in his tone as he stammered, realizing that he had underestimated my resolve. "That was just to reassure your parents," he said, attempting to downplay his earlier promise. It was clear now that he had been bluffing all along. "I also told you before that if things continued like this, I'd consider divorce," I reminded him. "I was tired of it, and I asked my father about your claims. Your department isn't that busy, is it?" Mike's excuses were falling apart. He had always pretended to be swamped with work, coming home late or working on weekends. I had trusted him without question, but I should have been more skeptical. My father had also found it suspicious when I discussed it with him yesterday. "You couldn't have had so many weekend shifts. What exactly kept you so busy? Where were you going every week?" There was no response from Mike. He was likely scrambling to come up with a plausible excuse. But any attempt now would be futile. I already knew the truth. "Ellie, isn't it?" I said, a hint of satisfaction in my voice. "She's quite cute, isn't she?" I could hear Mike's shocked gasp through the phone. "How do you know about her?" The detective was very efficient in gathering photos and video evidence, I replied, glancing at the pictures and reports in my hand. "Ellie Moore, a 22-year-old office worker. She's a whole decade younger than you, and I'm only 8 years younger than you myself. It seems you have a preference for younger women." I continued, "Her apartment is just a short walk from the station, on the second floor. Were you visiting her every week?" Mike stammered, "Wait a minute, Ellie Moore. How do you know her name?" I couldn't help but continue, "Ellie Moore, right? Seems like your choices are catching up with you." "What a cute name, Ellie," I said, reflecting on Mike's behavior. Before our marriage, he had been incredibly affectionate, especially given the 8-year age gap between us. Looking back, his actions now felt nothing short of revolting. "The conversations between you and Ellie are all documented," I continued. "I see you were using the classic line of a married man. I'll be divorcing my wife soon. Couldn't you come up with something more original?" According to the detective, Mike had a low opinion of me. When Ellie expressed concern about me finding out, Mike had reportedly said, "I don't care anymore." It was clear he had taken me for granted. "Just wait," Mike said, trying to deflect. "There's been some misunderstanding. Let's meet and talk about this. That's a good idea, I agreed. We should at least discuss this face to face. So the next evening, we arranged to meet at the luxurious new house where I was staying. When Mike arrived at the scheduled time, he looked around, bewildered. "What's this mansion?" he asked. "This is where I live now," I replied. "It's worth $2 million. Mike's voice trembled. $2 million? My father, who was also present, added, "Your father-in-law is here today." Mike's eyes widened nervously. "Of course, Ellie is here too. It wouldn't be fair otherwise. This issue involves employees of the company, so I asked my father, the company head, to be present." Mike responded with a strained smile. "I see." My father's gaze was stern as he observed the scene. Ellie, petite with light-colored hair, seemed strong-willed despite her appearance. As the discussion began, she glared at me and declared, "I'm a victim too. I had no idea Mike was married. It's unpleasant to be called out here." Her boldness surprised me, but what shocked me more was Mike's reaction. "What are you talking about? It was you who insisted I hurry up with the divorce," Mike retorted. "That was just a joke," Ellie countered, turning her face away from him. As they argued, Mike muttered under his breath, "I can't believe I got involved with a woman like this." Ellie, hearing this, became furious, and their argument escalated. "Come on, as if I'd seriously fall for someone older like you," Ellie shouted. "What are you saying? This whole mess is your fault. You were the one who said our company was finished. That's why I decided to leave Jane." It became clear that soon after marrying me, Mike had been influenced by Ellie's claims that our company was on the brink of bankruptcy and that he was in danger. Initially, Mike had taken it seriously, but gradually, her persuasion had worn him down. Ellie's belief that the company was collapsing had only been reinforced by my kindness toward him, which she misinterpreted as a sign of impending failure. "I was just worried that you seemed tired," I said. It struck me as odd how everyone, including the bosses and colleagues, was being overly kind. Mike responded, "That's probably because they were trying to be careful around me, given that I'm the president's son-in-law." He continued, "The idea that my father's company is in crisis is a complete misunderstanding. My father, present at the meeting, clarified, the company is actually thriving. There's no risk of bankruptcy anytime soon." Hearing this, Mike slumped to his knees, clearly defeated. "What have I done?" he muttered, realizing he had been manipulated by Ellie. It became evident that Ellie had taken an interest in Mike after discovering his connection to the president's family. When Mike initially didn't reciprocate her feelings, she had spun a tale of the company's imminent collapse to manipulate him. His cold treatment towards me was likely intended to make the divorce process smoother. Mike, with a distorted expression, pleaded, "I was just deceived. You understand, right? I suppose you were misled," I conceded. "But now that everything is clear, there's no reason to avoid the divorce." Mike looked bewildered. It became clear he was the type to flee at the first sign of trouble, prioritizing his own safety. He had an affair, plotted a divorce without discussing it with me, and even tried to manipulate me into initiating the divorce. "You're a coward," I said. "If I were ill, you'd probably abandon me too." "No, I wouldn't," Mike insisted. "There's nothing more to discuss," I replied. "I just wanted to know why you ignored me. You were at fault." Mike's face twisted in shock. "A lawyer? That's too harsh. It was just a joke." He's the one who took it seriously. Both Mike and Ellie refused to accept responsibility, insisting they were not at fault. Their behavior was revolting. Realizing I had suffered because of them made me feel pathetic. "Understood," I said with a smile. "You two are perfect for each other. You're Sybil-like. I'm done with this mess. Goodbye." "Wait," Mike called out, but my father gently placed his arm around my shoulder, guiding me away. We left, ignoring his desperate pleas. Afterward,
"I'm ending this for you today. Go join your parents in the next world and live happily there." A harsh, sloshing sound filled the air as gasoline drenched my head, filling my senses with its stinging smell. My mother-in-law Elena, smiling with twisted delight, discarded the empty gas can. My whole body reeked of gasoline as it dripped off me and seeped into the asphalt beneath my feet. I hadn't expected this. Certainly not when she abruptly stopped the car and dragged me out on our way to the crematorium. The cold wind stung, but I held on to the framed picture of my parents, clinging tightly. Your parents deserve better than a disgraceful daughter-in-law like you by their side. So let me do them the honor of sending you off, joined with their real daughter." She pulled a lighter from her pocket, smiling in a way that revealed her madness. The pungent gasoline fumes burned my eyes, and the chill in the air sank into my bones. I closed my eyes, apologizing silently to my parents, and clutched their photo tightly. I could almost see their sad but comforting smiles. The gasoline soaked through my clothes, stinging my skin with a biting intensity. Maybe I really was a terrible daughter. I wasn't even there in their last moments. A wave of guilt and regret crushed my heart, rendering me speechless against her accusations. "So, you neglected your real parents. Guess the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. A worthless daughter raised by worthless parents." She sneered, fiddling with the lighter in her hand, producing a rhythmic and ominous clicking sound that grated on my nerves. I knew I had no defense. It hurt even more, feeling completely defeated. The small flame flickered in the wind, speeding up my heart with every sway. "You always put on airs like a perfect daughter-in-law, but really you're worthless. No one loves you." Her cruel smile froze my very soul. If only I'd been a better daughter. If only I'd cherished my parents more. Regrets swirled like a dark cloud inside my chest. "But it's too late now." She took a step closer, igniting the lighter's flame. The dancing fire reflected in her eyes, filled with unhinged delight. But then, a single image flashed in my mind. Without thinking, I bolted, running with all my might while clutching my parents' photo to my chest. "Where do you think you're going?" Her shrill, screeching voice rang out behind me. Covered in gasoline, I ran as fast as my legs could carry me toward a single glimmer of light in the distance. My name is Mina Taylor. I'm 39 years old. I work as an assistant at a medium-sized company. Though my title is minor, I handle crucial duties, managing everything from accounting to administrative work. It's my previous job experience that's valued, but sometimes I feel it's little more than extra, unpaid labor. 6 a.m. on Monday, the city lights outside the 4th floor window start to dissolve in the dawn of spring. From another office, the soft hum of the copier starting up fills the quiet space. This is my favorite time. This stillness is sacred to me. My eyes fall on an expense report, where an unusual sequence of numbers catches my attention. The report is by Sam Walker, a younger employee who seems to be getting close with my husband, Jack. The numbers appear aligned at first glance, but years of experience reveal signs of clear fraud. Here, another one. The pattern is familiar, like past cases I handled. Old instincts from my days in corporate fraud prevention kick in as I highlight the evidence. Perhaps all that time I spent rooting out fraud was meant for this moment. 8 a.m. The elevator chimes, and a familiar voice reaches my ears. I find myself straightening up, instinctively tense. "Good morning, Mr. Johnson. Nice tie today." Sam's voice carries a practiced sweetness, sounding somewhat staged.
"Thanks. Oh, did you finish that report I asked for yesterday?"
Jack's voice has a warmth in it I don't hear at home, a softness reserved for someone else. It sounds like simple conversation, but anyone can see the closeness between them. Jack walks by my desk, treating me as if I were invisible. Lately, this has become the norm, both at home and at work. I hear my mother-in-law's voice in my mind. "She's smart and capable, but no one respects her." She loves to say that to her friends on her social media, oblivious to what's really going on. My phone vibrates, interrupting my work.
"Your mother's condition has deteriorated slightly. It may be best to bring her in for an exam."
My blood runs cold. I'll be there in 30 minutes. As I'm about to leave, I turn and see Elena, standing in the doorway, dressed in her flashy business attire. Her rank may be honorary, but she still radiates a commanding presence. "Oh, you seem in a hurry. But remember, we have an important meeting this morning." "My mother's health is declining. I need to..." She raises a hand, silencing me. "But what about the 80th anniversary event planning? I've been telling my friends all about it." The anniversary budget began at $20,000 but has ballooned to $30,000 with her endless demands. Meanwhile, payments to contractors are 4 months overdue, and the phone calls from small subcontractors grow more desperate daily. I can join a bit later. I just need to check on her quickly. So, real family comes first, right? Her words slice through me. Another Facebook notification flashes across her screen. Blessed with a wonderful daughter-in-law. It's another one of her deceptively saccharine posts.
Mom's right, Mina. The company has to come first.
Jack's voice echoes behind me, his tone as cold as ever. In his hand, he clutches a report prepared by Sam. Does he truly understand the falsified expenses it lists? Or is he testing me to see if I'll react?
Anyone seen the receipts from last night?
My father-in-law, Lance's loud voice fills the hall, no doubt fresh off another disastrous client meeting. His breath carries a stale hint of alcohol, a smell that's become all too familiar. He's started drinking even during work hours now, and the bills from his favorite bars stack up on my desk. The reality of this company, despite its 80 years, is a crumbling structure hidden behind a carefully maintained facade. Excessive expenses, poor management, and hidden fraud, the company's flaws run deep. Just yesterday, yet another contractor reached out pleading for overdue payment. I feel weighed down as I walk back to my desk. A new message lights up my phone screen.
Don't push yourself too hard, honey. Your happiness is what matters most.
My chest tightens, knowing Mom is sending what little encouragement she can offer, given everything. My vision blurs with tears. Just then I catch a glimpse of movement at the edge of my sight. Sam is at the cabinet in the finance office, hurriedly gathering documents with a strange, nervous energy. Later that day, the extended family and company staff gather at a formal conference room. The room exudes an air of seriousness fitting for the event, with elaborate decor and a large, formal setup. Afternoon sunlight filters through the high windows, casting a serene glow over the scene. Jack's parents sit at the head table, observing everyone with an air of authority. The only sounds in the room are the soft clinking of teacups and murmured greetings. I'm terribly sorry for the wait, everyone. Gaze flickers to her phone, a faint sigh escaping her lips. Her phone screen shows a group chat titled Ladies of Distinction. In the chat, she's already posted a few photos of herself in today's outfit. The delay was due to my parents, who couldn't get here sooner because of the lack of available care staff. Just as I try to explain, Elena's phone chimes loudly with a notification. Another like. My Facebook post seems popular today. She glances at her post, which reads, Blessed with an amazing daughter-in-law and a harmonious family. In truth, she's only met my parents a handful of times, and our last interaction was over a year ago.
Hey Mom, let's get a photo for Instagram.
He responds to a message on his phone as he reaches for her, and a flash of can't wait to see you tonight pops up on his screen. The sight makes me turn away. My phone suddenly rings, breaking through the noise in my mind. Hello, this is Mina Taylor. My heart sinks as I listen to the voice on the other end.
Your parents were in an accident. An ambulance is on the way.
I nearly collapse, struggling to stand. Elena's grip suddenly tightens on my arm, keeping me seated. You can't leave right now. This gathering is important to the family. There's a twisted pleasure in her voice, as if enjoying my misery.
She's right, Mina. They're in an ambulance. They'll be fine.
My hands shake as I settle back into my seat. From behind, I hear someone whisper, So ungrateful. Neglectful daughter, really. The comment stabs at me. Meanwhile, Elena places her arm around me in a fake show of comfort, her actions capturing applause from the surrounding relatives. Nearly 2 hours later, as the gathering draws to a close, my phone rings with another unknown number.
I'm terribly sorry, but despite all efforts, your parents did not survive. They lost too much blood.
My knees give out as the news sink in. Beside me, Elena pulls out her phone, typing away eagerly, her face alight with interest. At least you won't have to worry about their care now, Mina. She types a message to her group chat. Finally freed of that burden. I feel lighter already. In moments, replies flood in. You're so kind, thinking of others. Rushing to the hospital, I find my parents' bodies cold, lifeless. A paramedic relays my mother's last words to me. She said, Don't worry about us. Go live a happy life. My mother's final message to me, urging me to live for myself, fills me with a bittersweet ache. After their cremation, I return to their home, where I find an old letter from my father's college friend, George Crawford. He's now a successful CEO of a large construction firm. The letter details a promise made between my father and George to look after me should anything happen. For years, George has been offering our family the support we needed but never asked for. That night, Jack comes to the house, scrolling through his phone, barely looking up as he speaks.
Now you can focus on the family business.
Alone in my father's study, I clutch George's letter, finding solace in its words. Little does Jack know I've been preparing for this moment. I have everything. Evidence of Sam's embezzlement, Jack's mismanagement, and proof of Jack's affair. I open my computer and send it all to George, my heart steady with resolve. In response, a message appears from George.
Ready whenever you are.
I look at the insurance policy my father left behind, solidifying my decision. No one can hold me back now. The next day at the crematorium, I sit with my family, waiting for the final service. Elena suddenly dumps a bucket of gasoline over me, a cruel smile on her face. She leans down, whispering with feigned sympathy. Now your parents can finally rest. My clothes soak with gasoline as she smirks, expecting me to shatter under her cruelty, but instead I calmly get up and walk out. Outside, I run to a nearby fountain and dive into the water, letting it wash away the stench and the gasoline she drenched me in. I emerge, soaked but freed from her poison, feeling an unfamiliar lightness. Nearby, Elena screeches, trying to spin the story for onlookers, claiming she only meant to comfort me. Her act no longer affects me. My heart feels calmer, even as her pretense unfolds around me. I wring out my clothes, my mind filled with one final promise to my parents, to live a life that honors their love. Back inside, the quiet sound of the cremation service concludes, and my mother-in-law's phone buzzes nonstop with notification. Even in this moment, she can't stop posting, sharing her twisted narrative of events for anyone who will listen. A few days after the service, early morning light fills the finance office as I finalize my plan. I review each file, documenting every instance of fraud meticulously. Falsified expense claims, inflated invoices, double accounting entries, evidence of Sam's and Jack's betrayal. This time, they won't escape accountability. With a click, I transfer all the files to secure locations, including George's custody. In moments, the walls they've built around their lives will come crashing down. When Jack arrives at the office, he's holding a luxury gift bag. A present, no doubt, for his mistress. He greets me with a smug expression, oblivious to the reckoning about to unfold.
Morning. You're up early, Mina.
I respond briefly, knowing he has no idea that today marks the end of his charade. An hour later, the office starts buzzing with nervous energy as Sam is nowhere to be found. Phones ring and whispers fill the air as staff members begin speculating.
I can't reach her. No response on her phone, and it's straight to the voicemail.
I know where she is, of course. She's on the run, evading both her debts and the aftermath of her fraud. Shortly past noon, the company's compliance officer and legal counsel arrive, grim expressions on their faces. They bring with them thick files, the documents I had so carefully prepared.
We have a serious issue of non-compliance and fraudulent activity here. This may affect the company's future operations.
Jack's face pales as he glances over at me, sensing the gravity of the situation. But it's too late. The investigation has already begun, and every detail of their misconduct will be uncovered. My father-in-law stumbles into the room, still smelling faintly of alcohol, bellowing in confusion.
What's all this? Who authorized this meeting?
Legal counsel reveals a diagram connecting all the fraudulent transactions, showing just how deep the rot goes. Elena, fixated on her phone, suddenly gasps as she realizes that news of the scandal has started spreading across social media. Oh, this can't be happening! Look, they're posting about us! Her hands tremble as she reads a flood of comments and shares, exposing her deceitful posts alongside the truth of the family's scandal. Former employees and vendors are sharing stories, each one painting a clearer picture of the company's corruption. That night, Jack's rage echoes in the small apartment he now shares with his parents, having lost their home and nearly everything else. For a moment, I feel nothing, just a quiet, calm satisfaction. 6 months later, my own life has transformed. I'm now a corporate consultant, building a promising career with George's guidance. With my father's life insurance supporting me, I stand confidently, shaping a future on my terms.
I have to say, Mina, I'm genuinely impressed with how far you've come in such a short time.
I couldn't have done it without your support, George. We stand in George's office, overlooking a cityscape painted in soft afternoon light, both of us feeling the peace of long-fought battles won. As I place flowers at my parents' resting place, one autumn morning, the gentle sunlight makes them glow. I'm reminded of their unwavering love and resilience, gifts they passed on to me to carry forward. With a newfound sense of peace and purpose, I smile, ready to embrace my future. Thank you, Mom and Dad. I'll keep moving forward. The journey to this point was fraught with darkness, but ahead, I see nothing but light.